Welcome to the Burgundy Gold Knuckleheads podcast. As always, you know who's with me. It's my main man, Reggie. What's going on today, Reg?
Ken, how you doing, man? I'm doing good, Today is a good day, man. But before we get started with that, we want to get a lot of the commercial side of this taken care of. So if you listen to us on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe and share our podcast. And if you're streaming on all the other platforms, we appreciate you tuning in and listening to us as well. Speaking of listening to us, if you listen to our last podcast and we had Serge on, he talked about how he got into photojournalism and all the good things that he's doing. And he mentioned that his mentor slash boss, Lake Lewis, is a good friend of his, obviously, and will be willing to come on and talk with us. And Surge works pretty quick, man. As today, and as luck would have it, our guest today is Mr. Lake Lewis Jr. himself. Lake, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thanks for joining.
No worries. I appreciate you guys reaching out.
Yeah, thank you, man. And I want to say, being on social media and things, man, and talking to some people that we've met out in the DC area, your reputation precedes you, man. We've heard some things that you like to reach back and help others and kind of provide some mentorship to people and things of that nature. And reaching out and helping others today is one of those things, because we are a small operation out in Dallas. And for you to take some time out of your busy schedule and be a part of our show, we're not only grateful for that, but we want to thank you for joining us with that.
No worries, guys. I mean, you guys do great work, and it's true. I've always told myself, if I ever were fortunate enough and blessed enough to have a platform where I could help people, I would. And God's been good and giving me this platform, so I have to reward him back, and that's to help as many people as possible. I mean, let's face it, you can't be successful in anything if you think you're the only person that's doing it for yourself. I mean, it's a bunch of people that were involved in my success and still is, to this very day. So I just want to make sure I'm paying everything forward.
Man, that's the way to be, man. And I'm going to try to do better with that. I've myself tried to pay some things forward, not only with some friends, but family as well. And so it feels good, man, to help people, to be quite honest. And so again, thank you for joining us. Just real quick, man, I'm going to let all of our listeners know that Mr. Lake Lewis wears a man of a lot of hats. He's an NFL insider. He's our beloved Commanders insider, ABC News, host of the After Practice podcast, and CEO of sportsjourney.com. So he's a busy man. And again, we want to thank him for taking a few minutes to join our time here. But Lake, we'll get to it, man. OTAs is wrapping up this week.
Yeah.
And so what does that mean for you, just right off the bat? Does that mean you get a little break, you can go on vacation? Or is it that all your other jobs is going to keep you busy and you just got to just switch hats and move to the next?
It's funny you asked that, because I have two really big things coming up down the pipeline. I mean, over the next week or two, probably be announced, and it's definitely going to be a national buzz behind it. So,
wow,
I'm excited about it. And to answer your question, it's going to keep me year-round NFL busy. So, no, there's no breaks. And when you love what you do, it doesn't feel like you're working anyway, So for me, this is, I'm passionate about this. This is something I wanted to do since I was a kid, and to be able to do it and do it, being a kid from DC, able to cover a team that I cheered for when I was younger, it's special. So no, there's no days off for sure.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, and I was wondering, because you going to Penn State, I didn't know where your roots were, and I was thinking, is he a Philly guy? Is he a Steelers guy?
I have family in Philly. I have family from Mount Airy and Wissahickon and Germantown.
Okay.
I had a lot of cousins that went to Nova, LaSalle, St. Joe's, but no, I'm a DC guy.
Right on. That and myself. Reggie mentioned, we're here in the Dallas area, but I was born and raised in DC, and then out in the Frederick, Maryland area. So
born in DC Northeast, and then kind of grew up my more of my teenage years in Silver Spring.
Very nice. Very good. Very good.
Very nice. Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, kind of getting to back to the Commanders there. You know, the team, I don't know, as I kind of look at the team and where we are now versus roughly a year ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know when the last time a team in the NFL has in 1 year has had a new ownership, new GM, new coach, and a new rookie quarterback starting all within a 12-month span. And I mean, is it, you know, that's a lot of change. We as Washington fans thinks that that's all positive change, but it takes time for that much change to gel. How do you see that kind of lining up for success for this coming year?
I think it lines up immediately. And I can tell you what my eyes see at every OTA. Those OTAs look like the actual normal practices that I've seen over the past several years. And that's not to get people in trouble, because obviously we know there was a team recently that a little too physical in their OTAs, and they're going to get docked some picks for that. But Washington, these guys are getting after it, and it's just more on a competitive level. You know, it's very structured. And I think that, you know, from what I see with my own eyes, this team was a train wreck last year. They won 4 games. They're light years better, and they haven't played a game yet. But just from the practices, from the talent, the speed, the size, and yeah, from Jaden Daniels, from what you see, there's no reason to believe that they can't possibly double their win total from last year, and they haven't played a game yet. I like what Dan Quinn's selling. I like everything about what he's doing. You know, I have 2 really good friends that are assistant coaches on the team, and they've told me over and over and over that they had opportunities to go somewhere else, but they just loved what they heard from him from day one, and now they really see it coming to fruition. Yeah, I mean, they still haven't played a game yet, but guys, man, it's light years difference from what I'm used to seeing.
So you got the inside.
Yeah, I mean, that's my title.
Yeah.
That's your job. That's your job too, right?
Wow. And you know, you're right. At the end of the day, the results on the field is what's going to matter. But when we look at all the changes that have taken place and the excitement around as fans around the team, you can't help but look at the contrast in what we've been over the past few years compared to how we look now. And it feels like we're a real NFL franchise, man. And I'll be the first to tell you, I didn't realize how bad it was. But when you see what we're doing and the people we're able to attract, whether that's through Josh Harris, I'm drawing a blank on the GM now. All of a sudden, Adam Peters and Dan Quinn, the people we're attracting, the players we're bringing in. There's no way, at least I don't believe, that we would have brought these types of people into the organization if we didn't have new ownership.
No, not at all. And you wouldn't have signed Bobby Wagner or Zach Ertz either. So
Austin Eckler.
Austin Eckler, absolutely. You know, we're talking about successful veterans. You know, and Bobby Wagner, his first ballot Hall of Famer. You know, and for him to you know, leave an outfit that he had a lot of success with. You know, he went back to Seattle after leaving them for a year. You know, for him to come to the East Coast, that's a whole thing that people don't talk about. You know, this is the first time he's ever really been on the East Coast as far as a home base. You know, he complained to us the other day about the fact that he hates watching NBA games at 10 o'clock, 9:30 at night. But, you know, these are little things that people don't take into consideration when you talk about free agents, you know, coming across country, and let alone playing for an organization that's had so many troubles and so many problems. So for him to come across country, he obviously played for Dan Quinn when he was in Seattle. He's his defensive coordinator, but that tells you a lot about how people feel about Dan Quinn as a person, you know, as not just a coach, but somebody that they can entrust everything that they're doing out on the field in. And these guys have bought in already. It's just so, I don't want to use the word regimented because it sounds like, you know, they're in the army or something, but it's just no wasted energy out there. They're not practicing for 2 hours blowing smoke. They're practicing for an hour, 15 minutes, and it's running to each position. It's everything has purpose, and it just looks like a professional outfit. I covered the Ravens the year they won the Super Bowl. I actually decided to leave that outfit in training camp because I got the opportunity to cover Washington. So I chose Washington. Ravens went on and won the Super Bowl that year. I tell people, no, I wasn't there during the regular season, but I saw in the dog days of July and early August, I knew what I was seeing was something I had never seen before. And that was the makeup of something special. And they like I said, they won the Super Bowl, but their practices were so crisp and so physical. It was no party going on out there. Well, unfortunately, in Washington, I've seen guys on the side dancing. I've seen guys on the side, holding their kids, talking to family members while practice is going on. There's none of that now.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that goes back to the point I was making earlier, is that sometimes you don't know what you don't know.
Mhm.
And, for all the years that we've been fans, and a large portion of that has been under Dan Snyder,
Yeah.
we thought that's just the way it was. Now,
Mhm.
not all of us had the luxury of seeing other franchises like yourself, but as a
Well, I saw
fan,
Washington. I'm a lot older than you guys. So
Probably not. Probably not.
well, you put it like this: when they were winning Super Bowls, I was in high school and college. So, I remember those days, and I think people, the younger generation, always say if you're 35 or under, you don't know this outfit to be worth anything.
Right.
But if you're older than that, you remember those good old days, and how it was Super Bowl or bust. It wasn't just getting to the playoffs.
Absolutely.
If when you lost in the playoffs, it was a shocker that they lost to the Bears or to the Giants. So I think now it's going to be good for the younger fan base to see a real professional outfit. The wins and losses results may not be there the first year, although I'm predicting they're probably going to win 9 games or more.
No.
But with that said, I do believe that they're going to see just a professionalism, a professional approach, where when the third quarters, late in third quarters and they're losing, you don't see guys literally quit. You're not going to see that now. You're going to see guys stay physical, true to who they are. And those are the things that where you get wins and losses, are determined by these things. The other thing, guys, is when you, like we mentioned, Bobby Wagner, Zach Ertz, there was no one in the past several years that guys could turn to as far as being a true leader. No offense to Terry or John Allen, but they were more lead by example, like what they did on the field. But I'm talking about, I always said there was no one on that roster that would go in that locker room and tip a table over and say, you're playing like,
Right.
there was no one to do that. Well, you have some guys now that not only will they demand excellence, they have hardware on their fingers and they have personal accolades to show you this is how it's done. And I think those are the things that translate to just a greater level. And then on top of that, you have an A+ talent at quarterback finally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So no, I was going to ask you just real quick, like, so speaking of the quarterback position, where were you prior to the draft? In other words, everyone heard about Jake Daniels and McCarthy, Drake May, and I think I'm missing one more guy. But where were you prior to the draft?
I mean, listen, I thought that if Washington could find a way to maneuver to get to Caleb Williams, you had to try it. You had to. Okay. But once it was apparent that, Ryan Boyles and Chicago, that they were not under any circumstances moving out of that pick, you knew it was Jaden Daniels. On draft night in Detroit. When I was in Detroit at 4:00 on draft night, I tweeted out, I was told by his folks that it's a done deal. They've already told him he's their selection. And more importantly, I can say this on your show. I may have said this on one other show, maybe on ABC. I'm saying it on your show. I was told that Adam Peters and company and Dan Quinn liked him a little better than Caleb. So they just didn't want to say anything to maybe make Chicago say, well, if they like him this much, maybe we need to look at him. But they got the quarterback that they wanted. They think he's a flat out dog and a competitor on the field. And that's what they wanted to spearhead their new regime.
Yeah.
Man, I love it.
I
love it.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that, by the way.
To your point, you're talking about the changes and the personnel turnover. For those that have been tracking, the free agents that came in and the 9 or 10. I forget what we ended up with through the draft. Players through the draft.
Oh yeah, it's not.
What gaps do you see that either they still need to address or that they maybe didn't have enough focus on, on where we have gaps right now to be successful in this upcoming season?
Well, to be honest with you guys, I think that they focused on everything possible. I think via free agency, people keep saying the line, they didn't do anything with the line. Not true at all. I mean, you have Tyler Biadasz from Dallas, who was their starting center. Now he's Washington's starting center. You have Nick Allegretti from the Chiefs. He was a reserve guy, but got a lot of playing time, helping protect Patrick Mahomes. And he got a Super Bowl. So there's some success there for a guy that maybe just needs to step into a situation where, he doesn't have to rotate. He can, be an every down player. And that's what they're expecting for him to be at a guard spot. And then, of course, Sam Cosmi last year had a Pro Bowl caliber season, at left guard. So I'm sorry, at right guard. So I think for people to understand that there is a lot of talent on the offensive line, but the bookends, that's where people question, are the tackles able to do what they have to do? So I'm just going to remind this to people as well. When you have a dynamic quarterback that's a dual threat guy, you don't need your offensive linemen all to be Pro Bowlers. You just don't, because that quarterback's going to make some of those guys become Pro Bowlers. And I think that that's what Jaden Daniels is. He's that type of player. He's a weapon. That he's not a running quarterback by any means. And for people to keep saying that, they're absolutely wrong. He's a throwing quarterback that just happens to be very dynamic when he takes off on you. And I think that for Washington, they wanted that kind of player. And I think that because they got him as opposed to a Caleb Williams or Drake May, I'm not saying those guys don't have any athleticism, but they're not Jaden Daniels by any means as far as their athleticism. But I think if you had one of those quarterbacks, you probably would have had to have done anything you could to move up in the draft to get a tackle. I think with Jaden, it kind of softened the blow a little bit, and it allowed you to go get some other positions, some other things. And when people were saying that Washington wasn't picking for need because they took Jerzon Newton, I'm thinking, what 4-win football team has positions of need? They have a roster of need, So you have to take the best talent that's available. And I love what Adam Peters did. And I especially love what he did in free agency. I mean, Frankie Louvu, all these guys that they brought in were just waiting for their opportunity to become household names. And I think Frankie Louvu is going to be, wow, him and Bobby Wagner. That's what I'm looking forward to seeing.
Well, I got two questions for you then. So with that, did you have one free agent signing that you liked the most? And specifically on the linebacker spot, what does that mean for a guy like Jamin Davis?
Yeah, I think
because I know they've been trying him as an edge, I guess, to kind of rush.
They have. And that's another thing I will say to you guys too, is that, a lot of stuff floats around that guys are playing this position and they're playing that position. You might even see stuff like, Emmanuel Forbes is returning kicks and punts. Yeah, he is. Right. He absolutely is. But so are like 4 or 5 other guys. Right. So, they're seeing who can do what. That's what the OTAs are for. So to get back to the question of free agency, I thought Frankie Louvu was humongous, that signing. A lot of people don't know about him, but he, for my money, outside of Brian Burns and Carolina, was their second best defensive player. Might have been their second best player. And for Washington to get him to align with, Bobby Wagner, the perfect person to tutor under, to learn from, to take his game to a whole nother level. I think it helps his game, and I especially think it helps Jamin Davis. Jamin Davis might have a Micah Parsons type of role, in Washington, where he's an athletic specimen. He really is. And shame on, Jack Del Rio and Ron Rivera, because they totally did not use him correctly. Had him covering running backs and tight ends out the backfield. That's not his game. He's a guy that should have been pinning his ears back and going upfield. And guess what? All Dan Quinn and Joe Witt Jr. are doing is having him pin his ears back and go upfield. So,
and that's where we saw his success too, absolutely. Right? He made an impact more so when he was going, towards the backfield, whether it was even a running back sweeping, you saw that speed and power that he would do, or going after the quarterback.
Really good
Yeah,
tackler as well. Very good tackler as well in
yeah,
open
yeah,
space. So these are the things that defense guys weren't doing. They weren't. And I hate quote unquote throwing shade on people. I mean, Ron Rivera was a good man, and I always tell people this too. He wasn't hired by Dan Snyder. I know the league doesn't like me saying these things or people saying stuff, but he was a plant. Call it like it is. The league put him in Washington to bring some professionalism and stability while they were going through all these moves, these transitions. But he was never brought to Washington to be an X's and O's guy. That just wasn't going to be the case, and it showed. And he tried to put the onus on his assistants to do the job, and they couldn't do it. So that's why they're all gone. But with that said, Jack Del Rio walked into the most. He had everything. They put so much draft capital and stock in that defensive line, all first round draft picks, and 2 of them are gone now. You traded Chase Young for a bag of chips, and whether he was a disappointment or not, he still was the rookie of the year, his rookie year, defensive rookie of the year. And I say this to people now: imagine those 4 right now with this coaching staff.
Come on, Lake. Don't do that.
You probably would see why people were so upset that they. Don't get me wrong; they made the trades and they recuperated, a third rounder and a second rounder, and they used that very well in this draft. It appears to be, at least. So I'm not crying over that. I'm just saying the fact that those guys weren't coached to their strengths. It's just, you hate to see that. You really do.
Yeah. So just to go back, not to go back to the old regime, but I had never heard that before. So Ron Rivera was a plant by the league.
I think most of us, I don't mind saying it, but I other people know that it was, the league needed Washington to with everything that was going on. They needed someone that was respected around the league in there. And let's face it, if you had left it to Dan Snyder, he probably would have hired somebody else that wasn't liked.
Right.
So,
Wow. Okay.
Ron Rivera, when he came in, and he had all the power, he really did. And they made sure Snyder didn't interrupt that. So, I think for him, he did his job. I tell people all the time, he did what he was supposed to do as far as keeping Washington afloat, going through a name change, going through all the legal issues as far as, everything that was going on with the cheerleaders and things of that nature. And, those are personal things to a lot of people. My fiance was a Pro Bowl cheerleader for the team, and
okay.
Those are things that you hear, all these sad stories about how they did stuff. I knew things personally from things that I had heard, and seen with my own eyes. And just to be able to see real professional, good people in the building now, man, it's just, you have no idea how much you look forward to going to work now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man, well, that's awesome. That's some good insight. I again, I've always tried to tell people on our show here that you have to be able to separate Ron the man from Ron the coach.
Have to.
And I think everyone knew that Ron the coach didn't get the results that was necessary to maintain his job. And Ron would tell you that. In fact, I've heard him say that.
Yeah.
But for people to take their frustration about Ron the coach onto Ron the man, I thought was very unfair. That guy put up with a lot. He had a lot to deal with. He went through cancer.
Absolutely.
And he was a well-respected human being, and he didn't change that. And his lack of success on the field was his ultimate demise. And I think we all understood that. But you don't have to kick this man while he was down on the way out the door. I had a whole lot of respect for Ron Rivera. I knew that it was probably going to be time for a change. He even knew it was time for a change.
Yeah.
But I didn't have to kick this man on his way out the door. And I didn't like to see people dogpile on him like that.
Well, I have even more respect for Josh Harris too, because when he came in, he could have made that move right away. And I was told that there was some, the league told him not to do it. They wanted Ron to stay around. Just, you don't humiliate someone that we wanted in there to fix some things, and he was doing that, so that's fine. But then when it was time now to get down to the meat and potatoes, the nitty gritty, so to speak, as far as X's and O's, you needed to really get this outfit going in the right direction, and they're there now. I'm telling you guys, I've been doing this for a while, and my eyes don't deceive me too often, but this team right now would beat last year's football team if they played them on Sunday. They would
I
beat them.
believe
They'd
it.
probably
I
beat them
believe
pretty
Yeah.
bad. And
Wow.
that's a good sign, So
Yeah.
that's a 4-win team last year that probably could have won 5 or 6 games had they known how to win.
Right.
This team right here is going to be a lot different. And then you have a quarterback that's, take nothing away from Sam Howell, take nothing away from, Taylor Heineke or, Carson Wentz or Kirk Cousins, all these guys. None of those guys came from, and I'm sorry if you went to Michigan State. My mom graduated from Michigan State. I'm sorry if you went to VTech. I'm sorry if you went to South Dakota State. None of those guys came from blue blood programs. And
Right.
Aiden Daniels came from LSU. That was so minutes after he was drafted in Detroit. I had an interview. I had one of the first interviews with him, and I did. I asked him, going to Washington, a historic fan base, historic team, and they've been down, and people are ready for this thing to change. How do you feel about how you've been equipped at LSU to be able to come into Washington and play well? And you know what he said? He said, I replaced a guy named Joe Burrow. He said, who had won the Heisman and national title. He said, I think I'm gonna be okay. So
Yes.
he understands it's going to be a lot of pressure, but don't all the great ones want that? They want that pressure.
Yeah. Wow. And that's right. And that's a great perspective to have in the fact that he walked into LSU replacing a guy who, for all intents and
Did it
purposes,
all. He did everything you could have asked, broke records, championships, everything. And no, he didn't win a national title, at LSU, but he did win a Heisman, and that's a sign of success. And one of the other things, I'm not making this stuff up, gentlemen. John Allen, Terry McLaurin, Bobby Wagner, all have said he's the first one in the building and the last one to leave. And they pride themselves on being those people, and they can't beat them in. So that's already won over the veterans because they see the guy's heads down and he's working hard. And I can tell you guys verbatim, he's the best quarterback on the field. It's not even close. But he's getting all the second team reps as he should. They're gonna make him earn his keep. But there's no doubt he's going to be the starting quarterback on opening day. There's no doubt about it.
Well, I think learning the reps thing is probably a lot of the old school coaches that we have on the staff, right? That you earn it a little bit. And so let me ask you,
they're not stupid. They know he's the best guy. Trust me. Marcus Mariota is a class act, and Marcus Mariota knows too. Trust me, you can't miss it. There's no balls hitting the ground with Jaden. I think I've seen maybe 2 or 3, and I mean that legitimately.
Yeah.
Maybe 2 really bad errant passes. One should have been intercepted. One was just a little high, but it could have never been intercepted. So that's not a bad problem. But everything else is on the money. Everything else is in timing. And the other thing is he knows the playbook already. He's orchestrating people where to go. And the veterans say these things. Marcus Mariota said that the thing that stood out to him was he's in command of what he's trying to do out there. And I'm like, wow. We haven't even gotten to training yet.
Oh, man.
That's also a sign of great coaching because they're prepping these guys to do what they do well, and they never entertain having them do things that they can't do. Right. That's a big difference from the previous regimes. You're not going to ask any guy to do something that he's incapable of doing. And Dan Quinn said that's the beauty of being a coach, finding what a guy can do well and just keep featuring that in him. He said they're going to do that for all 53 players.
Golly, man, that's such a big difference from years past. But I know we're going to get you out of here because of your time schedule here. But I got 2 questions for you. One was about the Jaden Daniels story. Do you know whether or not there was any truth to the rumors that he didn't want to come here and there's some things that was floating around?
Not true at all. Let's shoot that down now. Not true at all. I mean, listen, we're all, if you're in sports, you're a fan of players, you're a fan of maybe some teams. And
sure.
if someone were to ask you, who would you love to play for? When I was a kid, I probably would have said, I'd love to play for the Redskins. Okay.
Right.
That doesn't mean that if I'm in a position to get drafted by the Cowboys, I'm saying I don't like Dallas. This guy is one of the nicest kids you're going to meet. He's humble. He's down to earth. He understands his role. He understands his opportunity. He told me at the draft, he said he wants to be a guy that, you know, even young black kids can look up to and say that they can play the position and they can do it. He said he talked about Doug Williams. He mentioned Doug Williams, you know, how long he knew him. And, you know, so these are things that a guy that understands. He also said at the draft, I'm telling you, sitting talking with him, flat out said he doesn't want to be called a franchise quarterback. He said he hasn't done anything. He just wants to come in, keep his head down, work hard, and win over his teammates before anything else. He said, I just want to win games. Everything comes after that, so be it. But I just want to win games and win my teammates over.
Well, because all those things that these guys want will come if you win.
Absolutely. You'll own the city. He'll take over the city, not just because he's the quarterback of the best, you know, sports outfit in town as far as the most recognized, but if he's winning, listen, B Mitch, that's my guy. That's my guy. Him and Santana Moss, and those guys don't pay for meals. You can tell them I said that when you see them. They don't pay for anything. They still live off just doing well on the field. Brian got the Super Bowl, of course. Santana didn't, but Brian even told me, I'm tired of living off this. I want some of these other guys to do something. So they're not always talking about me.
Yeah.
Listen, he understands. He does. And I'm telling you guys, I'm not trying to hype him up, blow smoke. It's something different when you watch him. Like when he's throwing the ball, they have drills where they move their feet, shuffle their feet. And if you go on my social media, you'll see some of those videos. He's shuffling his feet and they're throwing into, you know, a net that has squares on it or circles. So just for accuracy, all the quarterbacks, when they throw the ball, you don't hear their ball hitting the net. It's just quiet. When he throws the ball, it literally sounds like somebody's like popping a paper bag when the ball hits the net. It's just a different velocity on the ball. His accuracy is pinpoint. So all those things you saw as far as draft grades and everything he can do well, my eyes see it all the time. I haven't seen too many flaws. And the whole he's small, that's nonsense. That guy's got some size on him. Yeah. So there's nothing there. There's nothing there to knock.
So what was the big deal about Caleb being the best guy in the draft then? If Jaden has all of these intangibles and everything is good about him, you see it, the scouts are seeing it. So then what was it about Caleb Williams being the best prospect, even on Mel Kiper's board, right?
Well, you know, you have to understand Caleb has been in the limelight pretty much his whole career. You know, he was the number one
high school, yeah.
Yeah, he was the number one player coming out of high school, Gonzaga High School in DC. And you know, goes to Oklahoma and, you know, really just beat out Spencer Ratliff after they kept trying to give Ratliff the job, you know. So he beat out a guy that was considered at that time a first round grade, beats him out and just plays out of his mind. And then the second year wins the Heisman Trophy, you know, so by transferring to USC. So everywhere he's gone, he's excelled. He's actually gotten better everywhere he's gone. And make no mistake about it, if Jaden Daniels was in Los Angeles at USC and Caleb was at LSU, you probably would have seen Caleb Williams go number 2. And I'm saying that there's a huge buzz and hype train when you're in LA and you're playing for USC. LSU is nothing to scoff at, but USC is maybe 3 or 4 legendary programs that everyone knows about. So I think that those things all aided in his success. And Caleb is worthy of everything. I mean, he's a great prospect. He's a really good quarterback that's walking into a great situation in Chicago. They've got a lot of weapons, but guess what? Jaden's got a lot of weapons too. You know, he's got a lot of weapons. And for my money, he might have better offensive coaching right now. So we're going to see how that plays out when they play each other. I think week 8 in Washington.
Yeah.
See how that plays out.
Yeah, I'm excited.
That's a game definitely circled on the schedule.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of fans have that game scheduled because they just flat out embarrassed us on national television that Thursday night.
It was one of the longest nights. I mean, we were just eating that night in the press box. That's all you could do was just eat, and they better be glad it wasn't a bar in there.
Yeah, and I was at the game. I was in town on business, and last minute decided to grab a single ticket and sat there. And I was, texting Reggie as the game was going on. I was like, people aren't even mad; they're just in so much shock they're not even mad. They're like, what is going on? Everybody's looking to the left, looking to the right. It was,
Listen,
I mean, it was just a total collapse. Anything that could go wrong was going wrong that night.
That game to me will forever, she's probably going to be mad if she ever heard me say this, but so my fiance is the in-game host for the team, and does the skits and stuff when they go to break, and literally, so after the game I'll go down on the field to do my post-game show, or hit with ABC. So she'll meet me back when I come out on the field, and that night she was so like boom, like just everything that she would say was like really snippy, to the point where one of my friends said, "Is she mad at you?" And I'm like, "What's going on?" So I asked her, "Are you okay?" She said, "This was embarrassing." She said, "This whole night was just embarrassing." She was hot about that game. To this very day, she talks about that game and gets mad. It was the worst thing I had ever seen. And what made it worse was when Ron said he didn't tell them anything at halftime. They had to figure it out on their own. And I'm like, oh goodness gracious. That's when I knew it was bad.
It was one of those things, and it's still hard to describe. I think for most of the fans here, we've seen some bad teams, some bad years, and we've seen bad games. But there was something about that game that just didn't sit right. I don't know if we thought we was going to win it. It just was one of those games that
got scared. I hate to say this, guys, but just sometimes being around it, you can see they lacked so much confidence in themselves. They didn't believe in their game plans, the systems that they were running, and they kind of knew they were going to get embarrassed on Monday night or Thursday night. They didn't know it was going to be to an epic level like that, but they didn't believe they were going to win that football game, and it showed. And unfortunately, that was kind of week in and week out, up in New York, last year. We were just all sitting there, the media that went up to the game. We just couldn't believe how inept they looked. And then that was obviously when John went off in the locker room after the game, and I had it. JP Finley and myself, we had it, and I was like, I'm not gonna put John out there like that. And JP ran his, but I'm putting it out there. But the thing was, I couldn't believe what I was hearing from him, and I wanted to stop him so bad and say, "Don't complain to us. Do something about it on the field." But those guys were never confident because they didn't believe what they were being asked to do was going to work.
God. Well, Lake, man, we could keep you on here for a while, and I know we agreed to let you go, man.
So yeah.
But look, listen. Circumstances requires you to go, and so we're going to cut this short and let you go. But we promise to our listeners and promise to ourselves that we're going to definitely bring you back on, man. There's a lot of good stuff, a lot of insight that you have for us, and I think what we'll do is we'll probably try to schedule something middle training camp, maybe even the end. But we'll work something out because I know you got some big plans that you mentioned that's going to be coming. So not sure how that's going to play into this as well, but
still do it. So yeah, anything, like I said, I'm big on, trying to help people, and not that you guys need any help. You have a really good thing going on here. So, stay happy. And anytime you want me on, just let me know. And you don't have to reach out to Serge now, so that's
fine. he's still my guy, man. But thank you so much. And we will be in DC for week 1. And I know you try to pass through the tailgate
first home
sometimes.
Game,
First home game. I'm sorry.
If you're there and I'm there on assignment, let me. I'll let you know. I'll get you guys out there. Maybe get you on the field or something.
Okay. Sounds like a plan, Late. Well, man, thank you for your time. We appreciate you, brother. Take care of yourself.
All right, you guys take care. I appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.
All right.